The history of Linwood Park is impossible to separate from the history of Vermilion. The first settler, William Hoddy, arrived in 1808. Indian uprisings, encouraged by the British in Canada, led to the War of 1812, by which time there were 13 families in the area. The families in Vermilion built a blockhouse for protection, as it was rumored that the British were paying the Indians $17 each for American scalps. Commodore Oliver Hazard Perry hastily constructed a fleet of 9 ships, which set sail from Erie, Pennsylvania, passing Linwood to meet the British near Put-in Bay on September 10, 1813. With the war over, the business of settling the land commenced again. Agriculture was important in every town, but lumbering also took on early importance in Vermilion, with several sawmills being built to accommodate the vast forests that were being felled. In the 1830s, a furnace, to extract iron from ore, was built 2 miles south of town at what is now Route 60. An 1833 map shows a wagon road roughly corresponding to Cloudy's Path and an old bridge abutments near the current waterworks. The combination of the white oak from the forests, the iron from the furnace, and the natural harbor contributed to the establishment of a shipbuilding industry. Solomon Parsons launched the first schooner, Vermilion, in 1814, and shipbuilding in Vermilion was well underway. The second schooner was the Friendship, built by Captain William Austin in 1816. In 1834, Burton Goodsell constructed a shipyard, where he built the steamboats Vermilion and Missouri by 1840. The shipyard was located at the east end of Huron Street, where the waterworks plant is today. Late Captain Alva Bradley and financier Ahira Cobb later bought out Goodsell and amassed large fleets of ships, making Vermilion known throughout the lakes. Unfortunately, both men moved to Cleveland around 1859, which was a blow to the Vermilion economy. The local natural resources of wood and iron ore had both been depleted. Importing proved too expensive, and the furnace closed in 1865. The schooner was becoming archaic, and Vermilion's harbor could not accommodate the newer, larger ships, nor could her economy support them. The last large ship was built in Vermilion in 1879. 58 ships had been built in all, 53 of which were schooners. It was about this time that fishing took on greater importance in the village. With the dwindling of the iron, lumber, and shipbuilding industries, Vermilion needed another economic base. While the fish industry was to remain healthy, Vermilion found another industry, which, like fishing, was centered on the water and aided by the railroad. This was the resort or recreation industry, and that is where Linwood enters the picture. For years, prior to the establishment of Linwood Park in 1884, the land was used for a dance hall and picnic grove by a man named Nicholas Wagner. The picnic grove was the primitive forerunner of the modern American amusement park. Wagner had a long open-air dance hall, which probably also served beer and food. As a great-granddaughter of Wagner's remembers her grandmother speak of rising early to walk to Linwood and bake pies. The dance hall was located in the west end of the park area, slightly southwest of the current slide and running east to west. There was a small kitchen building southeast of the dance hall, probably near the present bell tower. An octagonal bandstand, similar to the one in Vermilion, stood near the kitchen in the West Grove, and band concerts were a favorite activity. A small square refreshment stand with shutters that swung up on all 4 sides was slightly east of the dance hall. Picnic tables and probably double lawn swings and hammocks were spread around the grove under the great Linwood tree and among the smaller linden, and a rifle range was set up. The west end of the chapel might have existed at this time, but its location and purpose during that period is unknown. Bathing was a popular activity, and there may have been small rowboats to rent. A large number of Wagner's customers arrived by steamboats, like this one that docked at Cedar Point. It is unknown whether these steamers unloaded at a small pier which jutted out from the middle of the beach, or at the nearby government pier, which was at that time made of wood. An office building at the top of the present tabernacle steps probably collected admission from them. The Lake Shore and Michigan Southern Railroad was active during this period, and many also arrived on that. The Nickel Plate Railroad was under construction in these years and had also secured property from Mrs. Bowden. From all accounts, Nicholas Wagner seemed to have had a very successful business, but for some reason at the end of the 1883 season, he decided to sell the property. Wagner decided to reopen his boot and harness business. In 1897, Wagner's son John opened the Hotel Wagner, which is still in existence today, 2025, as the Dollhouse Boutique, formerly the Vermilion Photojournal Office and Harbortown Dentistry. It was August 20th, 1883, when the group that was to become the Linwood Park Company gathered in the old barn on Brother Haley's Huron farm, which was then being used as both a tabernacle and sleeping quarters for their camp meeting. Buying property and building a permanent camp meeting ground had been Brother William Horne's idea, inspired by a visit to the Methodist Sunday School Assembly at Chautauqua, New York. They had voted the previous year to buy property, but nothing suitable had been found. This year, however, they were determined. Brother Horne gathered a list of those who were willing to commit themselves financially to such a project. A committee consisting of Brothers Horne, Hassenpflug, Thomas, and Bornheimer was appointed to draft a constitution, and another one consisting of Brothers Horne, Beatty, Gann, Hassenpflug, and Horning was instructed to look for suitable land. The Land Committee, meanwhile, confidently offered Wagner $10,000 for the land, which, to their disappointment, he turned down. A meeting called in Bishop Horne's study on November 19th authorized them to offer $11,000 and, if necessary, $11,500. This time, to their delight, they were successful. On his way home from Vermilion to Lindsay, Reverend Gann wired Reverend Horne.
Oak Harbor, Ohio, November 20th, 1883. Reverend William Horne. Linwood Grove has been purchased for $11,000. Hallelujah. Thanks be unto the Lord. C. Gann.
On Saturday, December 8th, 1883, the Incorporation Papers Committee met in Cleveland and signed the Articles of Incorporation. Elsewhere that same day, 3 promissory notes were being signed to Wagner, $1,000 each, payable in April 1884 and 1885, and the final $2,000 due April 1886. The purchase of Linwood Park was ratified by the annual session of the Erie Conference on March 7th in Sandusky. The conference voted to replace their district conventions with Sunday school conventions to be held in the park. At a meeting following the session, the directors voted to hire J.J. Thompson as superintendent starting April 1st at a salary of $250 per year. On March 31st, the mortgage was signed and the deed transferred. The land was now officially theirs. With that technicality out of the way and warm weather coming, nothing would get in their way. From then on, it was nonstop. The superintendent's house was built by Mr. Schock for $900 and was probably done by the 4th of July. A 200-foot shed to house horses was built across the road, now Liberty Avenue, where the Marathon service station once stood. Today it is a parking lot and is still owned by the park company. The dance hall, which was located in the middle of the park south of the current swings, was equipped with new crockery and tablecloths, and 100 chairs that were bought from the Peace Organization for 40 cents each. Meal tickets were printed and sold for 30 cents each, or 4 for $1. A lodging house was built by Conrad Heidloff of Vermilion, not the hotel that many remember. This was located north of the dining hall and of the current slide, perched rather precariously on the bank itself. It was 24 feet by 80 feet, a long, narrow building running east to west, with gables at either end. It was 2 stories, had 25 rooms, and was constructed in 21 days. This building was later to be referred to as the Old Lodging House, the Hotel Annex, or the dorm for park employees. They also had all the modern conveniences, a pitcher and wash bowl, soap, comb, and most importantly, a chamber pot. The rates for a furnished room were for one person 50 cents per day, $3 per week. One could, however, save by obtaining an unfurnished room, which was 25 cents per day, for 1 or 2 people, 40 cents for 3, and 50 cents for 4 or more. Considering the rooms couldn't have been more than 10 feet by 10 feet, that must have been rather close quarters. Smaller structures were also built. The bell tower, and the venerable bell which still calls residents to church and other activities, was manufactured in 1884 and given to the park by the McShane Bell Company of Baltimore for the cost of freight, which was split between the park company and the Camp Meeting Association. It was McShane's means of advertising. Church leaders attending the meetings and conferences in the park would hopefully see and hear the bell and be impressed enough to order one for their own churches. The bell was rung at 6 a.m., 10 p.m., and to announce meetings. It was also used as a fire bell. The superintendent was authorized to grant 99-year leases on the lots on May 6th, but the first lease wasn't given until September 25th, 1884. The leases were sold on a land contract, which meant that the title remained in the park company's name until it was paid off, even though someone else may have built and owned the cottage that was on the lot. The cottages had to be at least 14 feet by 22 feet, 10 feet high, painted clapboard, and have a shingle roof. The 12 cottages were scattered on both sides of the park, with half of them on the lake front and most of the rest facing the grove. The 3 on the east side were unfortunately destroyed in the fire of 1910, but the rest, while some are drastically altered, are all still in existence. There were 12 cottages built that first year in 1884. Shoreline Way East, center lot between Walnut and Ash, built by Mr. Hull, burned in 1910. 4975, Shoreline Way East, built by G. Hassenflug, burned in 1910. Behind the house is 405, Linden Street, built by Reverend C. A. Thomas, burned in 1910. 5085, Elm Street, built by Chris Rohrbacher. 5119, Fifth Street, built by Reverend Jacob Honecker. The house to the right is 5125, Fifth Street, built by Louis Beatty. 5115, Shoreline Way West, built by William Horn. 5118, Sixth Street, built by Henry Bickle. 5100, Linwood Street, built by Louis Beatty. 5149, Shoreline Way West, built by John Herr. 5161, Shoreline Way West, built by Anna Miller and William Hassenflug. 5167, Shoreline Way West, built by Alfred Haley and Mary Huttenlocker. The lifestyle of the period was primitive at best, and even more so at Linwood. Summer cottages are usually the last place to receive modern conveniences. Kitchens at home were usually equipped with cast iron, wood-burning stoves, an icebox, and perhaps a pump at a metal sink. Linwood cottages did not seem to have kitchens at all the first several years. Everyone ate communally in the dining hall, or else had a simple campfire behind their cottage. It wasn't until 1893 that cottage owners began adding little shed additions on the back of their cottages to accommodate the extra room. When stoves were introduced in the park, they were usually the lighter weight and less expensive kerosene, or sometimes the more dangerous gasoline variety. The grocery store sold kerosene for many years and would deliver it to the cottage. In the beginning, ice was brought in from Vermilion, but in 1895 Linwood built its own ice house at the foot of the Tabernacle Street steps. The ice was delivered the same way the garbage was collected, in an old wooden wagon. Bathrooms as such did not exist at all. In the beginning, there was no real plumbing system other than a water tower, pump, and restroom in the middle of the park. Later, there were outdoor hydrants, what we would call faucets, spaced periodically among the cottages. Pitchers and bowls were kept on a washstand or commode in every bedroom. Water drawn from the hydrant was heated on the stove and carried upstairs. After use, it was discarded in a tall china container called a slop jar. Hotel guests were requested, out of courtesy for the guests below, not to empty their slop jars over the railings. At home, the proverbial Saturday night bath might be taken in a galvanized tub into which heated water was poured. At Linwood, baths were more likely taken in the lake, with suitable bathing suits, of course, and some remember that occurring well into the 20th century. There was a primitive community restroom when the park was bought. Two more, one on the east side fence and at the location of the west side phone booth, were built. At night, however, chamber pots were kept in the bedrooms. In the morning, they had to be emptied into a central cesspool. By 1886, the company realized that they needed more lodging rooms than the lodging house provided, even with all the rooms furnished, so they decided to construct another such building. This became the western section of the hotel. Originally, they planned to build it at the northeastern corner of the Grove, but at the last minute located it shortly east of the dining hall. It was very similar to the other lodging house, a long building, but this time with the gables facing north and south. Having had problems with the first lodging house being on a slope, they had it built on level ground. It was 3 stories high with the third story left unfinished to save money. It was built by a Mr. Shade for $2,530, and the 20 rooms on the first and second floors were furnished. The third floor was completed the following year. A significant event for the park was the construction in 1895 of an eastern addition to the newer lodging house. The older section was first moved a short ways north and west, partially because it seemed to be standing on some low, wet land which caused an odor in the hotel, but also possibly so that the venerable Linwood tree would not have to be cut. The addition was 30 feet by 55 feet and was built by M. Lookle. The old first floor, which had originally been all bedrooms, was now remodeled to have a parlor and office, and a large dining room was set up on the first floor of the addition. The 3 long porch railings were a convenient place to dry bathing suits, and guests were continually being asked not to use them for that purpose. In 1894, a large double-lot rooming house was built on the lakefront between Ash and Maple Streets and was called the Poplar Inn. A double porch wrapped itself around 2 sides of the building. It was built by George Megason and D.C. Leonard. It was bought out by C.H. Dudley in 1899. He continued to operate the inn until it burned down about 1925. They allowed Chase to build a candy stand in 1886. It was a small octagonal structure between the dining hall and hotel, with lift-up shutters that exposed counters with glass cases. It eventually became the souvenir stand that many remember. Octagonal buildings were quite popular in those days. The candy stand was remodeled in 1894 with a large porch area surrounding it on 5 of its 8 sides, greatly increasing its area. Chase added the rental of the boats in 1887, and the next year he built a long bathhouse in the center of the beach, directly in front of the lodging house. On the first floor, he rented out wool bathing suits for 5 cents, and for another 5 cents, one could rent a changing room. There were rows of wicker baskets in which people could leave their clothes. A mad dash was usually made for the water, as the suits, while scratchy when dry, were considerably more comfortable, albeit heavier, when wet. When the suits were returned, they were simply run through the wringer and rented out again. The boats were also rented from this building, and a track ran from the structure to the water to facilitate the movement of the boats. The second floor of the bathhouse, with the perennial swing-up shutters, was fitted out with picnic tables. A foot ramp connected this area to the bank, and many a romantic tryst was held here. A restroom was built underneath the ramp in 1894. A portion of the old bathhouse may still be seen in the overhead of the shuffleboard shelter, as lumber was often reused. In 1887, the park company asked George Pete, Wall of Vermilion, if he would run a carousel, and it was installed by 1889. Wall, a shoemaker and later sewing machine merchant, had emigrated from Baden, Germany, in 1872. Wall had 3 daughters, Annetta, Hattie, and Marjorie, who, along with his wife, Catherine, helped him. In later years, Wall was also to acquire the refreshment stand, candy stand, and bathhouse. Wall's carousel was probably made by the Armitage Herschel Company of North Tonawanda, New York. There were 12 pairs of horses, 2 abreast, and 4 chariots. The horses were each set on a tripod-type frame, rather than the later up and down pole, and were given a gentle rocking motion as the floor rotated. This base structure was then covered by a tent with flags flying from each of the poles. The entire carousel was portable and was dismantled to be stored for the winter, sometimes in the English tabernacle, but later in a special building wall constructed on the east side fence. It was powered by a steam engine set off to the side and connected to it with a belt. The engine was later enclosed in a special structure. The carousel was only run on picnic days. Children could always tell when it was going by the shrill whistle of the steam engine. It cost a nickel a ride, and fare collectors later remembered getting seasick as they walked the ride while in motion to collect the fares. Pete Wall also ran 2 carnival games during this period. A shooting gallery was opened in 1887, replacing the earlier one run by Wagner. This was the staple of the primitive amusement park and had its origins in shooting matches held centuries earlier. It was necessarily a closed structure, and at this point in time probably had a fixed target. The second game Wall ran was a cane rack, also basic to the industry. This consisted of a sheet of canvas with slots cut in it, through which various walking canes were put so that they were held upright. The customer was then given a certain number of rings to try and circle a cane. The customer won whichever cane he rung. Most of the canes were inexpensive bamboo, but some were fancy carved ones of more value. A third game was run by John Baker and was referred to as a ball rack, although professionals call it a cat rack or doll rack. It was comprised of shelves on which rows of hinged doll faces, surrounded on top and sides by long hair, were placed. The object was to knock dolls over with the ball. It looked easy enough, since they stood tight together, but the majority of the space was just the lightweight hair through which the ball easily passed. The park company had been trying to convince the Nickel Plate Railroad to build a station at River Road, now Vermilion Road, but finally in 1895 settled for a platform. The company then constructed a 3-foot wood plank sidewalk from the platform to the gate. The Decker brothers continued to carry passengers and baggage in their hack and dray for many years. The quaint white grocery store, which held in great affection by park residents, was built in 1905 by Otto Palhorn for $420.90. It was 29 feet by 40 feet by 12 feet high and replaced a former store which was attached to the dining hall. It was operated by John Baker or by Vermilion merchants such as Pelton and McGraw. Schwenson's Bakery, which was started in 1893, brought bread and other baked goods in. Their delivery boy walked from the bakery with a large wicker basket balanced on his shoulders. Arliss Schwenson proudly displayed one of those baskets in the bakery. Later it was delivered by truck. Today the building is used as a museum. The chapel was built around 1880 when the park was Wagner's Woods. Palhorn built an addition to the chapel in 1905 at a cost of $493.21. The chapel had been built on or moved to Block 27, Lot 5, which was directly behind the tabernacle. It was a small structure with a single peaked roof. When it was decided to expand, the chapel was moved west and turned. The records state quite clearly and consistently that it was moved to Block 27, Lot 10, which is where Asbury Hall, the church's dormitory, is now located. For a number of years, any money left from the collection after paying the minister was saved towards purchasing chairs for the chapel. In 1905, George King and George Getz purchased the ornately carved chairs which still grace the chapel. The Linwood tree was an enormous, ancient, black walnut tree which stood at the southeast corner of the hotel. It was almost completely hollow, allowing 3 people to fit inside. It angled sharply to one side, probably bent as a trail marker by the Wyandot Indians living in the area around 1700. It was also very likely the tree which surveyors marked to indicate the northeast corner of the Firelands in 1807. It was cut down about 1901 for safety reasons. The English tabernacle was built on Linden Street in 1885 by the Fremont and Tiffin church districts. It was not used in later years. The pews were placed around the park as benches, and the building burned in the 1910 fire. The German tabernacle was built in 1884 by Julius Glick in an open air with a flat roof supported by posts with a dirt floor. The floor was covered with straw. Young boys often vied for the privilege of cleaning out the tabernacle at the end of the season for this very reason, to find lost collection coins. Because it was so dark inside, in 1907 the center of the roof was raised to form what is called a monitor to allow more light in. In 1941 the building was enclosed, and a 14-foot addition was added to the stage. From an article in the Vermilion News. Linwood, Friday, April 1st, 1910. At 11 a.m. The fire bell rang, and in 21 hours, 22 cottages were destroyed. It started on the roof of Henry Getz' cottage on Lake Avenue, apparently by sparks from a nearby chimney. Superintendent Marcus got the chemical outfit, and Reverend Ziegler turned in the alarm. The chemical engine was emptied without result. The hand engine started, but did little good besides keeping the fire back. The Vermilion steamer did not work for a while. When it finally started, they found little could be done to save the buildings in 2 blocks between Linden and Ash. East of Ash, the cottages were saved, but several were badly scorched. All cottages from the lake front, back to the site of the English tabernacle, except one, were burned. Furniture and bedding were taken out of the cottages, but much was ignited by sparks and burned. It had been a very dry spring. They thought the entire east side would burn and called the Lorraine Fire Department, but got the fire under control before they got started. The grass and roofs some distance away also caught fire due to dryness, but the fires were put out. Many valuable shade trees were destroyed. They figured there was damage amounting to $40,000 for cottages and furniture, plus loss of trees and loss of patronage since all were booked to overflowing for the season. The irony of it was the arrangements had been made to pipe water to Linwood from Vermilion, and Wee Bailey was to start the project this week. It is too bad it was not done in the fall. The present stand, which combined the dining hall, refreshment, candy, and souvenir stands, along with dorms for park help, was built the fall of 1931 by Dave Miller of Vermilion. It was 30 foot by 60 foot and 2 stories high. The old candy stand and dining hall were dismantled, and the wood was used in the new building. The long glass and nickel showcases and the pigeon-holed post office were brought over from the old stand. The front part housed the candy, pop, and souvenirs as it does now, but shutters swung up on the outside as they had in the former building to allow customers to be served on the outside as well. A restaurant occupied the rear portion where the games are now, and a kitchen was behind that. While the restaurant is gone, penny candy and ice cream cones continue in great popularity. Originally built as the east and west side gate houses in 1900, the structures were rebuilt in 1908. In 1960 and 1961, the gate houses were converted into payphone booths. Today, with peaked roofs and window boxes, they are one of Linwood's most charming features. A fundraiser was started in 2023 to refurbish the 1884 bell. The old tower had to be demolished in order for the bell to be sent to the original manufacturer for renovation. Once the bell was returned, a new tower was built around it. A dedication was held on June 7, 2025, with the ringing of the bell by Linwood Park residents. For the Linwood Centennial celebration, the old and used grocery store next to the stand was swept clean and spruced up, complete with window boxes full of bright flowers. Old counters and cases were brought out along with original massive oak cooler. An old Hotel Linwood sign was displayed. Many park residents shared antiques to show a turn-of-the-century lifestyle. Old Linwood souvenirs were displayed in cases, and new commemorative items were available. The centennial quilts were hung with pride. Local artists and craftsmen displayed their creations for sale. The museum is staffed full-time by volunteers. The front gate was first used in 1887. The tall, roller gate was built in 1913. The gatehouse was moved back twice for road widening, in 1922 and 1926. Finally, a new gate with divided incoming and outgoing traffic was set up in 1930. The flat-roof brick gate was built in 1964, but rain problems soon forced them to add a peaked roof. The current, lovely white Victorian gate was built in 2003 after a storm destroyed the old gate. The west gate allowed people to leave the park and follow either a path, the old roadway through the swamp, or an elevated catwalk to get to a ferry which crossed over the Vermilion River to town. Assel Foster ran the concession from 1899 to 1906. From 1907 to 1932, it was run by a colorful French-Canadian, Louis Cloudy Noel. He was a tall, dark man with bushy eyebrows and dressed in overalls, and everyone, except the park company, loved him. He kept a disreputable shack projecting over the water where his wife, Mamie, sold pop and penny candy and kept a slot machine. His first boat, the Gertrude, was open, sometimes with an umbrella, and had an enormous American flag flying off the stern. His second boat, the Mary Ann, had a canvas awning. He rented boats and ran a campground nearby. When Lewis Wells was building the lagoons, he allowed Cloudy to live in a brand new house next to the yacht club and continue the ferry until 1932. After his wife died, Cloudy lived in Erie, Pennsylvania to be near his daughter, but finally returned to Vermilion. When the bathhouse was torn down in 1922, the lumber was used to build 2 picnic shelters in the West Grove to cover picnickers in bad weather. When someone came back from Florida in 1930 with the idea for shuffleboard courts, one of the shelters was extended to provide the proper distance for 3 courts to be built. 2 more courts were added the following year. In 1920, our enormous double slide, 6 swings hanging from a high metal frame, and a wooden merry-go-round were installed in the park. West of the hotel in 1922, another swing frame and seesaws were set up east of the hotel. Almost 90 years later, 4 generations of families have played on this same equipment. They have to be the highest, best slide and swings anywhere. The western swings are perfectly situated so that one may choose their view while swinging the lake or the grove. In the early days before motorized vehicles, horse and wagons were used in the park for deliveries and hauling. There were several different horses used, but they were all named Dolly. Here is Dolly helping with beach cleanup. Children were delighted at the old horse who clopped around the park collecting garbage and performing other tasks. In 1984, 2 centennial quilts with 70 individual squares were each lovingly stitched together by members of the Linwood community to celebrate Linwood's 100th birthday. Karen Boas organized the making and assembling of the quilts. The methods of construction were as varied as the background of the creators. Longtime cottage owners, renters, day visitors, even the townspeople participated. Eleanor Ryan and Tara Feldkamp, owners of the Crystal Beach, made a square of the beloved amusement park. Arliss Schwensen, owner of Schwensen Bakery, made a square of the bakery. Old and new version of the Linwood gates, the tabernacle, the chapel, the stand, everything was represented in the quilt squares. The quilts were hung in the museum for the centennial year and have ever since hung at the front of the tabernacle each year. The 125th celebration quilt was created in 2009. Carol Flick devoted her time and talent to compile the contributions of others. The quilt is on display in the tabernacle along with the other 2 quilts created for the centennial celebration in 1984. The 4th of July is the highlight of the season for Linwood Park. The old-time Americana parade is a throwback to the 1950s and 1960s with classic cars, cartoon characters, and the famous Linwood marching band that rides seated in a wagon. Over 100 children decorate their bicycles in red, white, and blue streamers, ribbons, and American flags. Ladine McGurr leads the parade and is credited with starting it. Part of the Linwood Park experience was sending picture postcards to friends and family. Up until 1907, one side of the postcard was reserved for the address and stamp. The other side was for an image and writing. Early cards were printed in Germany due to their technology being superior to America's at that time. At first, cards were black and white. Later, color was added by hand tinting. Often the German artists would take artistic liberties when touching up the photographs. One such example was by an artist that couldn't conceive of a lake where you couldn't see the other side, so he put trees on the horizon of Lake Erie. Wall souvenir stands sold postcards and had a convenient writing table nearby to write your card at. The Vermilion Historical Society has over 100 postcards in their collection. Many of these postcards feature Linwood Park and were mailed by the patrons of the park. We will review some of the cards in our collection. This is the oldest postcard in our collection, postmarked in 1905. The postage for a postcard was 1 cent. The destination was Kansas. The message was October 13th, 1905. Adam, this is Harold Brummett on the chair in the water, taken while he was visiting here last summer. A.B. Parsons. This postcard was postmarked in 1906. It was sent to Dry Run, Ohio. The photo caption reads, Beach at Linwood Park, Vermilion, Ohio. The message was, there is a great crowd here today. It is not much like picnicking with 3 or 4 at the bottoms. Soon we are going to paddle up the river in a canoe. Do you wish you were here? Jane. This card was addressed to 3 Twining Road, Birmingham, England. The postmark is 1907. It took a 2-cent stamp to get the card to England. The caption on the picture reads, "A bit of comfort at Linwood Park, Vermilion, Ohio." The message reads, "Dear E. Just a note to let you see I have not quite forgotten you. Thanks for your letter. I hope you have a good time in March. Remember me to 80. Also your friend Daisy. This park is lovely in the summer. Now goodbye. Much love from your friend Alice." This 1908 postcard is the new style postcard with the image taking up one side of the card and the other side equally divided for the address and writing a note. The caption on the photo reads, "Linwood Park, Vermilion, Ohio." The postmark is August 5th, 1908. The card is addressed to Green Spring, Ohio. The message reads, "I guess it is all off. The lady will allow only 4 in the room, so that means only 1 besides us. Grace." The image on the front of this postcard shows the mouth of the Vermilion River. The caption reads, "Yacht races near Linwood Park, Vermilion, Ohio." This postcard was published by George P. Wall in Vermilion and printed in Germany. The postmark is July 25th, 1910 in Brownhelm Station. It was addressed to Amherst, Ohio. The message reads, "Hello Della, how are you? Why were you not at the GM picnic? I had a dandy time. When are you going to write that letter? From your friend Margaret Noon." This postcard was published by Fred J. Inglebury, Vermilion, Ohio, and printed in Germany. The postmark is Vermilion, August 31st, 1911. The caption on the picture reads, "Poplar Inn, Linwood Park, Vermilion, Ohio." Notice the clothes drying on the porch handrails. This card was addressed to Atchison, Kansas. The message reads, "We are having a very nice time here. This is the cottage where we are stopping. Also our room faces the lake. Mr. will join us Sunday. Alma." This postcard was published by F. J. Inglebury Dry Goods, Vermilion, Ohio, and printed in Germany. The caption on the picture reads, "Linwood Park Hotel, Linwood Park, Vermilion, Ohio." The postmark is Vermilion, August 31st, 1911. This card was addressed to Cleveland, Ohio. Notice the German logo in the upper right. The message reads, "My dear Mrs. Hayes, we are all here again for 2 weeks. We have got a cottage this time and like it so much better. We came down last Wednesday. It has been quite cold, but it is just fine today. Lots of love from Grace Sommer." The caption on the postcard picture reads, "Moonlight at Linwood Park." This card was addressed to Cleveland, Ohio. The postmark is 1915. Notice the message was written in German. After running the message through an online translator, the message starts, "Dear friends, it's wonderful here. The weather is delicious. The gathering was great, as was the sunset last night." Now the translation becomes a little scrambled. "Ain't necessary. I hope you could be here. Sister Sorwin is representing me as a sick person." The caption on the picture reads, "Vacation Row, Linwood Park, Vermilion, Ohio." This card was addressed to Cleveland, Ohio. The postmark is 1921. There is a 2-cent stamp. The message reads, July 21st, 1921. "Miss Colgan arrived at Linwood Park this morning. Had a nice time on the train. The lake is warm and the water is fine. I am playing tennis this afternoon. Your friend, Howard Weinhold." The caption on the picture reads, "The willows on the beach at Linwood Park, Vermilion, Ohio." This card was addressed to Earlville, Illinois. The postmark is 1927. The message reads, "3 girls of us here together and surely having a good lazy time. Days are warm and nights cool. Learning to paddle and all stiff and sore today. Ruth S." The card is now stamped that it was printed in Chicago. The caption on the picture reads, "Through the grove, Linwood Park, Vermilion, Ohio. This card was addressed to Finleyville, Pennsylvania. The postmark is 1930. The message reads, July 24th, 1930. This is a nice place. Ellen, Mary, and Wallace are sunburnt, can hardly wear anything, and dying to go in the water. Think we will start home Monday morn. It is very hot here in the day. Maud. The caption on the picture reads, Hotel Linwood, Linwood Park, Vermilion, Ohio. This card was addressed to Brecksville, Ohio. The postmark is 1937. The message reads, Dear Arlene, I am having a good time. The window with an X on it is the room Beatrice, Margaret G. and I have together. As always, Jean Dreifenbach. The caption on the picture reads, Bathing beach on Lake Erie, Linwood Park, Vermilion, Ohio. In Ohio's Lake Erie vacation land. This card was addressed to Rogers, Ohio. The postmark is 1940. The message reads, August 28, 1940. Dear Alice, it is a shame that I have not answered your letter when you were so kind to write and tell me about the picnic. It was not convenient for us to come, as Marion was at camp and Ken was working in Ohio. We are now up at Vermilion. It is lovely here. Marion and Ken and several of their friends rented a cottage here and asked Willard and me to come along. We all got sunburned on the beach today, and this evening they had a wiener roast. Jenny. The caption on the picture reads, Greetings from Linwood Park, Vermilion, Ohio on Lake Erie. This card was addressed to Nevada, Ohio. The postmark is 1946. The message reads, July 9th, 1946. Hi folks, here I am at Linwood, and I am having a swell time. I have been swimming both afternoons, and I sure have a sunburn. I'll see you next week. I got 2 letters from Bob today. Love, Margaret Ann. The caption on the back of the card reads, Linwood Park Beach, Linwood Park, Vermilion, Ohio. This card was addressed to Middleborough, Massachusetts. The postmark is 1955. The message reads, August 8th, 1955. Hi. Tried calling you last night, but no answer. We are sunning and swimming here on Lake Erie. Presently, we are quite pink. John and Rita. The caption on the picture reads, Entrance to Linwood Park, Vermilion, Ohio, on Lake Erie. This card was addressed to Centerville, Ohio. The postmark is 1957. The message reads, Hi Grandpa and Grandma. We are having fun swimming every day. I wish I could see you both. Marlene. The caption on the back of the card reads, Entrance to Linwood Park, Vermilion, Ohio, on Lake Erie. This card was addressed to Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. The postmark is 1960. This postcard bears a 3-cent stamp. The message reads, Hi folks. Weather has been fine. Beach is real nice. Children having a grand time. Fishing good. Hope our fish haven't been too much trouble. The Webbers. The caption on the back of the card reads, Entrance to Linwood Park, Vermilion, Ohio, on Lake Erie. This card was addressed to Scotia, New York. The postmark is 1964. This postcard bears a 4-cent stamp. Postage is going up. The message reads, You will surely have an answer to your good letters one of these days. I think of you often. We are spending a week here and enjoying it as much as ever. I love the quietness, beach and lake. Love, Margaret.